YouTube, once again, we're talking college sports in the Deep South where college football is king. And on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. This video is actually for those of you all tonight that just can't get enough of Auburn content. We talked earlier about some of the upcoming events that will be going on with the Auburn Tigers. You got the first scrimmage going on tomorrow, and also Tank Bigsby out of Callaway High School in Hogansville, Georgia, one of the top running backs in the Southeast, will be making a decision as to whether he's going to be an Auburn Tiger as well. Very big news for the Tigers, who, as of right now, don't have a running back in this particular recruiting class, so that will be very big for them. Let's go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel. Here on Vernon Speak Sports, it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger. And on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry, of course, is War Eagle. Auburn fans, want to welcome you all tonight. And also the SEC fans that like to come and hang out with us. And also, I think I caught wind of an Oregon fan who's talking a little noise in the comment section, saying that Cam Newton will not be participating in the Oregon game. Obviously not. Cam Newton now plays for the Carolina Panthers. And there was no substantial evidence that Cam Newton did anything illegal as it related to being an Auburn Tiger. War Eagle. So, as rumor would have it, Auburn is supposed to have one of the best defensive lines in the country coming into the 2019 season. And there's every bit of reason to believe so. As we rewind, as we usually do, Auburn is in a unique position because you have a lot of experience on the defensive line. You talk about Derrick Brown, who could absolutely be a force. We feel like he has not played up to his potential so far, at least the statistics show. Marlon Davidson as well, who has been documented several times on the offseason saying he left a lot of sacks on the table, did not play up to his potential as well. I actually saw this during the regular season last year, especially after the LSU game. These guys took a major step backwards. Things just did not look good, did not look sound on the Auburn defense, especially starting with the Mississippi State game all the way to the game against Alabama. The defense didn't play with the same intensity. They didn't play with the same drive. I think that LSU game took a lot more out of the Auburn defense than one would like to give credit for. And there were other factors as well. The offense just could not get anything consistent going on. As a matter of fact, you look at it from the outside looking in, at times it was just frustrating to watch. There was no rhythm. There was no rhyme or reason. Therefore, Auburn not only did not produce a 1,000-yard rusher this year, their time of possession was just absolutely abysmal. And it was just really, really depressing to watch at times, the Auburn offense, and then channeling that with a not-so-intense Auburn defense. According to Gus Malzahn and the rest of the coaching staff and some of the players, when we look at media days, you could see a different level of intensity, at least verbally, at least from a perception standpoint. Got some coaches during the offseason, welcomed Wesley McGriff back in the secondary, acquired inexperienced but energetic and great recruiting out of Kenny Dillingham and Carnell Williams. Their coaching ability is yet to be seen. But when we talk about the defensive line for the Auburn Tigers, obviously having Derrick Brown, Marlon Davidson, Nick Cole, and Big Cat Bryant is a huge gain for the Auburn Tigers. But there are some guys who definitely will be contributors this year. I mean, you talk about a recruiting class 2019 where you have some guys that really could come in and make an immediate impact. It seems as though right now on campus, the guy that's having the most impact, that's getting the most press, is Jaron Handy out of Mississippi. He has, on video, he shows a lot of intensity. He's relatively big, 6'5", about 280 pounds, probably will put on a little bit more weight. And I think he's going to definitely be a factor in this particular defensive line. I was asked in the comment section, hey, Vernon, can you do a video talking about the impact of Tadarian Moultry, better known as TD Moultry, and also Coynis Miller. Coynis Miller right now is actually battling a shoulder injury, which we think he will be able to recover from. It's actually projected that he will be back by the Oregon game. Whether that will be 100% is yet to be seen. But he's definitely somebody, especially since all indications show that Tyrone Truesdale will probably not play this year. He's been battling Achilles injuries for quite some time. So you're probably not going to be looking to see him playing this year. Like I said before, Coynis Miller battling a shoulder injury, and that will be it's a factor, especially, you kind of need a healthy shoulder when you're playing on the defensive line, especially against the physical offensive linemen that Auburn will face in the SEC Power 5. They have a Power 5 ball game against Oregon first week. So that's going to be very important. First, we're going to talk about the impact of TD Moultry. I'm going to tell you, man, looking at TD Moultry on video was absolutely amazing. This guy is always looking for contact. He's a very physical football player. His closing speed is absolutely amazing. And one thing I like about the possibility of TD Moultry, especially if that has transferred over as an SEC defensive lineman, I really like the idea of TD Moultry really challenging for that buck position. Because his speed, his attack, his vision is all that is indicative of what the successful buck linebackers of the past have been able to do for the Tigers. You talk about Jeff Holland, was excellent at the position. So TD Moultry, coming back this year, obviously in the hunt, going to have to battle either Big Cat Bryant or Nick Coe for that buck linebacker position, but definitely we'll see a pretty good bit of playing time. I think he has the athleticism to play the position. I don't think from a size standpoint you want TD Moultry in the middle anywhere. But as far as the defensive end, I think defensive end or buck linebacker position, I think that would be the perfect position for TD Moultry. And I think he can have some massive impact on this Auburn defensive line. Because if you think that it's just going to be Derek Brown, Marlon Davidson, and Big Cat Bryant or Nick Coe just running this defensive line, you're sadly mistaken. You're going to have some depth on this defensive line. So even if, for example, TD Moultry doesn't start, he's definitely going to get some very significant reps this particular season. I'll go ahead and make the bold prediction that Jaron Handy will also have some reps as well because of the injuries of Daquan Newkirk. You're going to have to rotate some guys out because depth is going to become a factor. And, those hits and that, those big linemen laying on you, all of those things start to add up after a while. Another thing that I've mentioned before in other videos that will be very important for this Auburn defense is the psychological factor of having a sound offense. You make big plays on defense. You make big stops in the red zone. You force teams into field goals only to have an offense that's just non-productive, that leave you out on the field for the majority of the football game. And that definitely was a huge factor in the play of the defense down the stretch as well. In many games, Auburn's offense was only able to produce about 18 minutes worth of time of possession, i.e. the Mississippi State game. Then you look at the Georgia game. I don't care who you are. Georgia has a very good, very physical offensive line. Auburn was actually in that game late. The score was 20-10 midway to late in the third quarter. However, the offensive line for Georgia began to impose their will because the reps started to add up. The Georgia offensive line is huge, and they're very skilled. They block very well. As a matter of fact, look at video on the long touchdown by DeAndre Swift against Auburn, just great blocking, teamed up with a very fatigued Auburn defense. That's something that's going to be a major factor as to whether this defense can be as good as we think they can be, is they got to get some rest. You know, they can't be on the field the whole ball game and expect, you know, to have stellar performance. Just think about it. How much better could the Auburn defense have been statistically, only allowing about 19 points per game last year? That includes the 52 point surrendering to Alabama. Only allowed Georgia 27 points as awfully as the offense played. Only allowed Mississippi State 23 points. Of all teams, Tennessee was the team that scored the most points, you know, scoring 30 points against Auburn last year. Now, mind you, that was helped out by some very deadly turnovers from Jarrett Stidham on last year. You know, I mean, those turnovers in the Tennessee game were absolutely unacceptable and very costly. Kind of similar to the costly one that he had in the SEC championship when Auburn had the opportunity to go up 2 scores in the red zone and did go up 2 scores, but probably cost Auburn a touchdown. And those are things that are factors as well, is the turnover factor. Now, on the other side, you have big Coynis Miller. All right. So when I'm looking at video on Coynis Miller, it was actually kind of comical, to be honest with you. Coynis Miller, out of Birmingham, Alabama, you know, I just thought his video was just hilarious to watch. And the reason why I say this is because you have a huge defensive end. I'm just expecting to see, you know, defensive end type play, you know, and I just wound up seeing some things out of Coynis Miller that were very, very agile in nature. He did very well on the defensive line. He attacks the ball very well, but he also played it. They had him in the Wildcat, and he was pretty effective. As a matter of fact, if you guys remember the jump pass that Auburn executed against Alabama back in 2017, Coynis Miller did that same thing in the game. He also played running back. I mean, and didn't do too well. Hell, I wouldn't want to tackle him. Very effective as a ball player, a very versatile ball player. Have very quick feet. Very, very has the opportunity to really be a force for the Auburn Tigers. Now, that shoulder injury may be some of what limits him. Now, if he could actually be durable for the Tigers this year, I really think that he could be the guy to succeed Dontavius Russell. And he might even be a little bit more athletic than Dontavius Russell. I really like what I see out of Coynis Miller. Like I said before, very agile, got quick feet, got good hand movement, attacks the football very well. The question for Coynis Miller is going to be his durability. He had 1 sack last year, so he did get some playing time, but it's going to be very important. Even if it's in a limited role to begin the season, it's going to be very important for Coynis Miller to definitely get some reps for the Auburn Tigers. If Auburn is going to have the elite defensive line and elite defense that we think they're going to be, they're going to have to rotate some guys out. Because like I said before, Derrick Brown, Marlon Davidson, those guys can't do it by themselves. You know, it's going to take a huge team effort. Would be nice for a Derek Hall as well, true freshman, as well as Charles Moore even, to make some contribution. My bold prediction for Kobe Wooten is that he actually redshirts this year. I think he needs to get a little bit bigger, and I think he redshirts and will definitely have a huge impact for the Tigers on next season. So one thing that I think also the defensive line will benefit from, assuming everything falls into place at the linebacker position. If we all remember, the linebacker position, if you really want to look at this with objective eyes and not the we love Deshaun Davis eyes, which we do. But when we're very honest about the the linebacker play for Auburn on last year, at times just really was lackluster at best, especially when you talk about attacking the edge and covering in the flat. The secondary already as inexperienced and as suspect at times as they were, really didn't need to have to be so dependent on run support. And because of the sometimes lack of athleticism from the linebacker play on certain plays, the secondary was forced out of position in doing their jobs at times. And it also put pressure on the defense as well. I mean, the defensive line as well. But we feel like with KJ Britt, possibly Owen Papo, Zacoby McClain, maybe even a little bit of Michael Harris in there, we think that the Auburn linebacking core will really help to add some type of supplement for defensive-wise, production-wise, to make this defensive line even better. Because, I mean, if you look at the spring game, Owen Papo was very active. And what I liked about him is his instincts in finding the football. He knows how to fight through blocks, and he knows how to square up and get straight to the football. Same way with KJ Britt. More of a sideline to sideline kind of guy. So that is going to be, that's what people have, that's what we have to understand when we're really looking at this, is how all the parts come together from a functionality standpoint to help one or the other. See, before, just like how Daniel Thomas came up to hit, you had Trey Matthews who helped supplement the linebackers, but it's time now for Auburn to be much more elite at that linebacker position. And I'm talking about all three guys, because the Auburn linebackers really struggled, especially attacking the edge last year. And it was obvious in games, especially like Mississippi State, in games like Georgia and Alabama, told on them real bad. They played particularly well against LSU. The intensity level was a lot better. Played very well against Power 5, Pac-12, Washington. But pretty much after the LSU game, it was just a wrap for the linebackers. Really, they didn't play well. The totality of circumstance contributed to a defense that allowed 488 yards down the stretch, about 28 points, and they gave up a whole bunch of first downs. You'll hear me say this in a lot of videos, because I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration as to somewhat of the downfall for Auburn down the stretch. Luckily, Auburn was able to pull off the game against Texas A&M to somewhat salvage the season, and maybe even in a roundabout way keep the boosters from reaching in those pockets and going ahead and buying Gus Malzahn out. Because a loss to Texas A&M last year would have been absolutely deadly for the Auburn Tigers. Now, so to rewind this thing, Coynis Miller, we think he's going to be a very, very nice force in the interior defensive line. Obviously, at 6'1", 300 pounds, former 4-star recruit out of Jackson Olin High School in Birmingham, Alabama. And we think he could, if he could be durable, he could definitely be a nice replacement for Dontavius Russell. Then we talk about T.D. Moultry, a former inside linebacker who, 4-star recruit also out of Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson Olin High School, 4-star recruit, versatile. He could either play the defensive end or he could play the buck linebacker. So I'm looking very much forward to seeing both of these guys in action. I can't harp on it enough. I really, really am hoping that Coynis Miller can be more durable. That's the only thing that we got to worry about, is his level of durability. Can he be the guy, the every down or a lot of rep kind of guy for the Tigers? And even still, Auburn still has the versatility with the defensive line, with all the guys coming back, to move some things around to figure out what works. Because this is a situation where we might not know who's going to actually have the impact until game time. Okay, that's where it could be all decided, because fall camps only gives you about 19 days worth of action But then when you get them in live, real game experience, especially having Tulane and Kent State to gear up for SEC play against Texas A&M, you got a little time to figure this thing out. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here on the Late Podcast, talking about the Auburn defensive line. As always on this channel, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. And for all the Auburn supporters out there, War Eagle.